Mm. Want to watch that? Okay. Hello, everybody. I didn't realize I was still facilitating, but here we are.
Yeah, I apologize for that, folks. Good afternoon, everyone. This is probably Stephanie's final meeting as co-chair. One of the things on the agenda is to select or nominate and elect new co-chairs. So you'll have the opportunity to do that a little bit later. And as we all know, and as is true for, I'm sure, most of you, right? But certainly visibly true as far as I can tell for Stephanie. She wears a lot of hats and sits on a lot of tables at a lot of places. So this is one that I'm gonna say this. I'm gonna editorialize. It's not her words. These are my words. I'm sure she'd be quite, relieved to relinquish this particular hat to someone else. And I'll just remind everyone that the standard that we've set, or the precedent that we kind of set with that, was having one community member as a co-chair and one systems person as a co-chair. So we'll be looking to continue that. But that's sort of why the transition is a little clunky, because it's like, hey, Stephanie, you're the only co-chair we have left, right? John was a co-chair as well, and he's no longer with us. I'm glad to have Melissa here today. But so because you're the last person left, we got to leave, the sort of co-chair duties to you one last time before they pass along.
All righty. Well, here we are. Welcome, everybody, to our Racial Justice Oversight Body quarterly meeting. Why don't we do roll call first? I think we have a quorum, but let's go ahead and do a roll call.
I can help with that.
Thank you. I think that was Nicole.
And we do have quorum. We are at quorum.
Okay, good.
All right. Matthew Malone. We'll come back to Matthew. Melissa.
Here.
Isa.
Here.
Robin.
Here.
Dinah.
Here.
Visa.
Here.
Lynn.
Here.
LaShante. We'll come back to LaShante. Dr. Walker.
Here.
Amisha. Jeff.
Hello.
Michael.
Here.
Shayla.
Here.
Stephanie.
Here.
Ronell. Come back to Ronell. Cheryl.
Hola.
Apollo. Come back to Apollo and Noe. I do see you there.
No, he's here. Sorry.
Okay, that's okay. And then we have some other staff. We have Melvin. He's still here.
I am here.
And Alicia Nichols, I see.
Yes, good afternoon.
Jill Ray.
Hi there.
Melissa Crockett.
Hello.
And Denise from
Hello.
ORJ. And our newest member from ORJ, Patrice.
Hi, everyone.
And we have a couple of community members, Jane. And myself, Nicole from ORJ, and then Chris. Did I miss anyone?
I think that was it. Thanks, Nicole. So now we'll open it up for public comment and for anything that's not on our agenda, as well as any announcements that our committee members may have. And I do want to turn it over to Isa because she wants to officially introduce Patrice.
I do. I am so incredibly honored to officially introduce Patrice Guillory as the new director of the Office of Reentry and Justice for the Probation Department. We could not be more excited to welcome Patrice to our probation family and back to county work. I think that her expertise and her background in engagement, organizing in the nonprofit sector, and her work in really developing the reentry platform for this county is going to lend itself beautifully to our enhancements of the ORJ that we're really looking to adopt this year and in years coming. So without further ado, I will let Patrice share a little bit about herself, but I'm so excited to welcome her to this table officially and to this work more formally. And with that said, Patrice, would you like to share anything?
Sure. Thank you, Chief. And thank you, everyone, for allowing me an opportunity to just share a little bit about myself. I look forward to getting to know getting to know some of you as time goes on. But prior to coming over to ORJ, I did work closely with Health Right 360 as their managing director, supervising some of their Contra Costa programs, most notably the Reentry Network, which many of you are familiar with, as well as our Coco Lead Plus project, which many of you have served as project partners on. But overall, I've been working in the reentry field in Contra Costa now for the last 5 or 6 years. And so I served as the CBO rep on CCP, worked on CAB that actually helped to promote and ensure that the Office of Reentry and Justice is institutionalized as part of county government. So it's definitely come full circle for me. I'm very humbled to be in this position now, and I look forward to leading all of the great work that we've done and actually taking it to the next level with in collaboration and partnership with all of you. So thank you all for welcoming me, and I look forward to the discussion today.
And I'll also add that Patrice will be representing me on the data subcommittee for the Juvenile Justice Courting Council, as well as the data subcommittee for RJOB. So we'll have a consistent voice when it comes to data, which I think is really going to be helpful as well.
Thank you. I'm excited to be able to work with Patrice again because it's been a while. So thank you so much. Any more announcements from the committee members or public comment? All right, well, seeing none, we'll move to our next agenda item, which is nomination and election of our new Our Job co-chairs. And like Chris mentioned in the beginning, we have had 2 chairs for this, someone from the community as well as someone from one of our justice stakeholders. And so we'll open it up. Did you want to say something, Chris?
Yeah, it looked like Cheryl had a hand up right
Okay.
before you into this agenda item. So just in case.
Oh, I did not see that. Sorry, Cheryl.
I did. I just wanted to say very quickly just for an announcement. Okay, so I have to say this. It is a month of Ramadan, so I'm fasting. And so I have to say that because, yes, I just have to say that. So I have to, it's a mind, it's not just food that you're fasting from, but it's also the mind and the way that you speak and the way that you think and the way that you act. So if I don't speak much, that's why. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. And apologies for missing your hand. I completely missed that.
No problem.
Okay, so now back to nominations and voting on new co-chairs. And did you want to drop something in, Chris, before we get started on nominations?
Yep, I was just going to ask if you could talk a little bit about what your experience as a co-chair has been like, what the lift has been, that sort of thing, so that folks have a sense of what they're getting themselves into before they either self-nominate or find themselves voluntold within the next few minutes.
Sure. So, you know, it's looked a little bit different depending on what's going on with the body, but generally it's supporting and collaborating on what the agendas look like. At some points, it may be coordinating with some of the other chairs of our subcommittees to talk about different needs that we may need to address during some of the meetings. We've also had some strategy meetings with the chairs. And so, you know, it just looks a little bit different depending on what specific needs are. I think since I've been co-chair, and I can't remember if it's been a year or 2 years, everything is blending together now. But it's depending on those needs, it's been a little bit more time than others. Sometimes it may be 1 hour a month, just as a chair. Sometimes it may be a little bit more, like I said, depending on what those needs are. I do think it's a good opportunity to kind of learn some of the inner workings of what's been going on with our job. And also an opportunity to work a little bit more intimately with some of the members on the committee, which we don't necessarily get to do in a full meeting. And so it's a very good experience. I encourage folks to think about self-nominating or nominating someone else. So yeah. Okay. So with that said, we'll open it up for nominations, or if someone feels so moved to volunteer. And as I said, we're looking for 2. We would like someone that is a community member, and then someone that is one of our systems partners.
Stephanie, it looks like Jeff has his hand raised.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you. So let me just start off by saying, Stephanie, I appreciate your leadership and the chair role up into like this moment. So it's been really terrific having you and John Loudon also in those positions. I should say when I'm raising the hand, I'm not proposing myself, and I have to be cautious in proposing to another person I haven't spoken to about capacity, but I am thinking about how it was, to my mind, valuable in having John Loudon, law enforcement leadership person, also in leadership here. And I'm wondering if Chief French might be willing to, interested in. Again, it's not my place to be volunteering, but I'm just speaking in favor of that dynamic. And I know that, right, you have the experience in this group. So I'm proposing that as someone who could see the merit in it without really knowing more. With humility.
I like it.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I have a lot on my plate right now. And if there's somebody else that has more time and ability, I would defer to that person.
That was incredibly diplomatic. That was great.
Chris knows I'm always at the very last minute answering his emails and corresponding. Of course, if there isn't anybody, then I would step up and do what it takes. But I would like to see if there's anybody else that's available first.
I would add here. So certainly we appreciate you guys nominating each other and hope that you will continue to do that. I would add to try to think about folks who are currently subcommittee chairs, because at least for until the next subcommittee meeting, you'd be asking them to take on both roles, which is probably a bit much. So try to think about folks who are not currently chairing a subcommittee, like Chief French is chairing the Diversion Subcommittee right now.
Any more nominations?
All right, so nobody's talking. So just to confirm, this position also has a co-chair? Okay. Well, I'd
Yeah,
be willing
this will be a co-chair.
Okay, I'd be willing to co-chair with the understanding that I'll be giving up my chair position for the Diversion Committee.
Thank you, Chief French. Are there any nominations for the community co-chair?
I nominate Tamisha Walker.
Thank you. Tamisha.
I like that one too.
Do you accept this nomination? I don't know how to take it.
They look like receptives to me.
I knew I was late to this meeting for some reason. Okay, is it, can you bring me up to speed before I say I accept?
Yeah, so this is for the new co-chairs for the committee, taking over what John and I were doing together. So there'll be times where you'll have to plan the agenda for the committee meetings and maybe some additional meetings around strategizing. So usually maybe like an hour a month, sometimes it may be more. And then leading the meetings, the quarterly meetings.
And you'll never be alone in doing that stuff. Like that's part of the reason that I'm here. So, you know, these are things that we will go over, that we'll talk about, that I'll be happy to help with. Agendas, usually I will draft. So you can look at a draft and say that looks good, or change this or edit this, as opposed to needing to develop those on your own, that sort of thing. So be sure to lean on me as much as you need to, both incoming co-chairs.
I accept.
Great. And so now we need to call for a motion for these, or can we just go into voting?
I move the item
Second.
enthusiastically.
Thank you. Can we do a roll call vote, Nicole?
Yeah. Melissa,
Aye.
Isa,
Aye.
Robin,
Yes.
Lina,
Aye.
Lisa.
Aye.
Lynn.
Aye.
Dr. Walker,
Aye.
Tamisha,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Shayla. Aye. Bethany,
Aye.
Carol,
E.
and Noe.
Yeah, aye.
So the yes? Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. The motion carries.
All right.
Congratulations.
Congratulations to our new chairs. I am very excited that you all decided to volunteer for this. And it's been a pleasure being the chair for you all. And at this time, I will turn it over to Bisa and Tamisha. Yeah, it happens immediately.
Oh, no, I thought you were chairing this meeting. Stephanie.
Your time starts right now.
I'm not sure that's fair. Okay, let me pull up the agenda. I'm sorry, I don't have the agenda up. Just a second.
Pizza, it's in the chat. You can just link to it directly there.
Thank you, perfect.
You're welcome.
Gotta say that was well played, Stephanie.
Yes, that was.
It's kind of a tradition. It's
Yeah,
kind of how it
yeah.
goes in every meeting. It happens like that.
Yep, you're just kind of thrown right on in there.
Unfortunately, it's not letting me click on the link.
I'm trying to pull it up too, but the last time that happened to me, I became the most hated person in my community. So I would have appreciated a heads up. Let's see.
I can try to upload it in as a file in the chat and see if that helps.
Oh, I got it. Let's see. All right, so next on the agenda after nomination and election, we have approval of the record of actions for the last meeting, for the meeting February 4th, 2021. If everyone has had a chance to review the action, we'll entertain a motion to approve the actions. Is
I move approval.
there a second?
A second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Melissa?
I'm going to abstain just because this is the first meeting that I've attended, so thank you.
Lisa?
I'm actually abstaining as well. I don't think I was at the last quarterly.
Robin?
Yes.
Dinah?
Yes.
Lisa?
Yes.
Lynn?
Yes.
Dr. Walker?
Yes.
Misha?
Abstain.
Michael?
Yes.
Shayla?
Yes.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Ma'am.
Noe?
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, that was easy. On to the next is receive reports from the 3 subcommittees. I'm sorry, am I supposed to ask for public comment after those? For that last one? Is there any public comment? All right,
I
seeing.
just wanted to go back to that last for a second, make sure that, I don't know if I was called on to vote on was I for this last item? Approval? If I wasn't, then
I'm sorry,
it's okay.
what did you
I'm in
vote?
favor. I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
that it was recorded. Sorry to jump in there.
There was an abstain ahead of you and I put you that as the, sorry about that.
No problem. No problem.
All right, so no public comment. We'll move on to the 3 subcommittee reports, and we'll start with Community Engagement and Funding Subcommittee. Jeff?
All right. I'll jump in. Thank you. So our attachment is attachment 2 from our subcommittee. And I'll just note at the top there, this is page 7 of 20. I have kind of half a mind to do a share screen so people see it up there. What do you think? Should we give it a shot? I sometimes feel like, we just kind of needed to have it on our screens, at least some people may be in that position. So I'm going to give that a try. Yeah, folks able to see that?
Yep.
Okay, well, we'll at least attempt and see if that's useful. I'd note that we did not have our February meeting due to lack of quorum, but we did have our March and April meetings to report on. We've made development progress in the community capacity fund. It's something in particular on our work plan that we've been investing time and attention to, and have moved the process along in terms of our reaching consensus about having the model that would be a smaller group first of persons who would be getting the support, and then a larger second group, and kind of this tiered model based on presentations that we'd have and some discussion that led to that proposal that we're making now formally to the full oversight body. And also we're in progress with the capacity fund guidelines, which are really more in terms of how the program would not necessarily operate, all the details, but sort of mission vision for how it would operate to steer what would happen moving forward. And then we've also been really making sure, to the extent we can, that we're having full communication, opportunities for communication with the Juvenile Justice Coordinating Council, because there's a lot of overlap in what we're doing, and it makes so much sense to be having regular communication. We've actually made that as part of our standing agenda items for the Community Engagement Funding Subcommittee, is that we're going to have a report back as to what's going on with the JJCC, because we just need to stay in the loop and work together with all of it. So we're building on that. And I wanted to note that we're making recommendation to the full RJOB to endorse the creation of the Miles Hall Non-Police Response Unit, as well as AB 988. I believe that there have been positions taken by other advisory groups or bodies. However, I don't believe that our oversight body has taken positions on these two items. So without going into greater detail than perhaps is appropriate here, and I imagine that many people on this call, this meeting, are aware of those two proposals, and we had some time that we had paid to them with public comment and discussion at, I think, our most recent subcommittee meeting. But basically, short version of 988 would be a number other than 911 to call for situations in case of mental health emergency, and to have specialized mental health providers responding. And also and that would be a statewide initiative. And then for the Miles Hall non-police response unit would be basically the implementation of that in Contra Costa County, in the ways that if there were a number to call, then how would that be responded to in our county? And this being in honor of, in memory of Miles Hall, who is a young African-American man who was killed in Walnut Creek and was having mental health crisis at the time, is a short version of what I'd present, to just the general context for that. But we had discussed at our last subcommittee meeting our interest in supporting that as a subcommittee and bringing it to the full body at the next opportunity. And let's see, what else would I note? Just that we're planning to have further listening sessions, and if not just listening sessions, basically preparatory meetings with other youth leaders and persons that are connected to youth leadership organizations. So basically trying to inform how we move forward on this youth advisory council, with not having persons who don't self-identify as youth or transitional age youth as being at the lead. We really want to make sure that this is informed by the persons that we're attempting to have in leadership. So those are kind of future steps. I'm noting that there were a couple things in the chat, but since I'm doing the share screen, I didn't yet see. Okay. And I'm seeing just that note in, it's in my chat, I believe, that that the RJOB cannot take a position as an advisory body, but can recommend to the Board of Supervisors. And I think that is important if we're wanting to have appropriate action, that we phrase it in the way that it can be received. So, right, that's well taken. And I guess I'd say that I would be then proposing that we would recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they endorse creation of. So we're not necessarily endorsing, or we're not endorsing as much as we're recommending to the Board of Supervisors is what I'm proposing that they endorse it. And that's suggesting that we're in favor of that action. So that's everything that I wanted to just point out. I think in addition to what's already on paper, and you see the draft guidelines, those are a draft, and we're still in discussion of what they would be. That's page 9 of 20. And perhaps I'll stop my sharing of screen now. Did anyone have questions on that follow-up? I know we have some members of the subcommittee here, so there may be other points to add.
Okay, I don't hear any other further comments. Was there action though that the subcommittee was asking the full body to take?
So yes, and if this is the appropriate time, I suppose I'll take the opportunity. That yes, looking at the page 7 of 20. The first is I'm making a motion on behalf of the subcommittee that we recommend to the Board of Supervisors that they endorse creation of the Miles Hall non-police response unit and AB 988. I intend to make a second motion afterward, but this is the one that basically incorporating the language from the report. And again, that's at page 7 of 20 in our agenda packet.
I will second that motion.
Does anybody want to have, should we have a discussion before you actually make the motion and discussion? Or there was no discussion on this motion?
I think, well, if I'm not jumping in inappropriately, I think can be now, there's a motion and there can be discussion on the motion prior to voting and modification if necessary. But you're in charge on this one, so.
Okay, well, there's a motion and there's a second, and I don't hear any discussion.
And
There's a note in the chat.
Yeah, I was just going to say, if there isn't any discussion from the committee members, there's a public comment.
Okay, we'll open it up for public comment. Thank you, Stephanie. And I'm sorry, I can't see who's actually, okay, Miss Courant.
And Jill also.
Okay.
Hi there, everyone. I just want to say that I would love to see this body endorse the Miles Hall mental health initiative. I'm a member of Surge Contra Costa, and a lot of people in that organization, as well as many others, have been lobbying for this, and it would be great to see you all endorse it. I think it would be important. So I'm not sure this is the appropriate time, but I gather that's what you're voting on right now. So yes, I would, as a member of the public, very much like to see that. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're excited to see Amy's email.
I don't have any public comment. I was just reminding you that to take public comment, that's all.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for the reminder. Okay, that's all for public comment.
I see Cheryl, I'm sorry.
Oh, Cheryl.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to reiterate that I understand that we can't direct the Board of Supervisors, but I just want to change one word in the recommendation. Sir Jeff, I would like to add the word strongly recommend to the Board of Supervisors.
That sounds like a friendly amendment, and I'm happy to incorporate that. I feel strongly about it, so I'd propose to have that, or I don't object to that being included as an amendment.
Thank you, sir. And with that, I think you can already surmise my support. Thank you. That's it.
Are you still seconding this one, Robin?
Yes, I continue to second with the friendly amendment.
Okay, roll call vote.
Melissa,
Yes, I'm sorry, I should have spoken up sooner. I just have a couple questions regarding the endorsement, and if that plan, it seems to me, and maybe someone else can jump in here with more information. It's in very preliminary stages of how that would actually look, or do we have more information of exactly what that system would look like? If anyone can answer that for me.
I should have raised my hand in the chat. But if I'm not jumping in before, oh, Jill has, and why don't I allow her and then I'll mute.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yes, we are in the process of that. The Health Services Department just did a rapid improvement event that wrapped up last week. We've been looking at this. This is the second of a three-part rapid improvement event series. So this is one of those pieces. They're looking at 4 parts. One is dispatch, one is creating this team, and then there's 2 other parts to it. So this is very much something that the county is working with the 19 cities to develop.
Thank you, Jill. I appreciate it. Then my vote will be aye.
Etha,
Aye.
Robin,
Yes.
Dinah, Etha,
Yes.
Lynn,
Aye.
Dr. Walker,
Aye.
Tamisha,
Aye.
Jeff,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Shayla,
Aye.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Absolutely.
and Noe.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And was that the only recommendation for us to vote on, Jeff, or did you have something else?
Thank you. There was just one other, and I'll say that I do appreciate those votes in favor of this. I know that it's going to be a continued process and campaign, but I think it's meaningful that we've just voted unanimously in favor. And the next that I have as a motion is to request, or that we would request, initial funding from the Board of Supervisors for technical assistance with development of a 2-phase hybrid cohort community capacity fund. I'm happy to unpack that, but that's the language of what I'm proposing.
I would like some unpacking.
Yes, yes, certainly. Okay, so our work plan, the subcommittee has been working on this concept of a community capacity fund, which is part of the recommendations that came from the Racial Justice Task Force. So we inherited that recommendation and we're rolling with that process. We had received presentations from, well, initially Dante Blue, and then we had someone from Jewel Legacy Fund come and give us a presentation, and then further discussion afterward to kind of have a sense of what are the ways that this could work, helping community-based organizations fill the need to have alternatives to incarceration. So, or another way to think about this would be, and I think we had phrased it more broadly as trying to prevent persons from going into law enforcement, criminal justice system unnecessarily. Not meaning as a career, meaning being impacted by, clearly. And then trying to prevent persons from coming back in, and basically building the support in terms of technical assistance and sometimes funding it where appropriate to allow those organizations to be better equipped to fill the needs that we have in our community. And there's different ways that this can work. If I'm going on too long, let me know, but hopefully this is still kind of value in breaking down what this would be. That we had spoken in favor of, decided, looking at, in particular, the Alameda County model, but others as well, and that there can be this first group of grantees that's a larger number of organizations, and that those organizations would apply to receive this first round of sort of a cohort of persons or orgs that are receiving some training and knowledge sharing in terms of how they would be able to apply for grants, be able to build the things into their structure that would be necessary to be receiving the funding, and working with a larger number of grantees at that first phase, but a smaller amount of investment in terms of dollars and time with the larger number of grantees. And then from those, the bigger set, that initial phase, selecting a smaller number who have shown through the first phase to really have the sort of foundation necessary to have greater investment in this second phase, which would be a smaller number of grantees, more investment and time with those orgs, and really having a focus on orgs that aren't already as established partners. And but there's fluidity on that. But I think what we're really trying to talk about is helping those organizations that haven't been the main traditional partners in building the network of those that could provide service. So, and what I'm asking for here, or what our subcommittee is saying, is I think sensing if this is really going to move to the next level, we're going to need to have some additional dedicated facilitation to this project, because, right, we're already having facilitation for the quarterly meetings that we have here, and then our subcommittee meetings, which is a lot of work on its own. But if this thing is really going to run in the direction of, like, we're creating this capacity fund, we probably need someone to spearhead that and help us shape it. And I can imagine, for what it's worth, that the Board of Supervisors might receive this and saying, you know, we're having some kind of parallel conversations with the JJCC. Maybe these could come together in some way. And I see that Issa's raised her hand and has been super essential partner in this. So I could invite her to jump in at this point, if that's all right.
Certainly. And what I will also say, though, that I just want to make sure we're all keeping on our minds, as somebody who is intimately familiar and intimately involved with the development of the Alameda County strategy, it was an exceptionally labor-intensive strategy. So I had 17 probation specialists and a fiscal team of nearly 20 in Alameda County that we do not have here in Contra Costa County. So I think we need to be really thoughtful about, if we're asking the board for a budget for it, where that budget's going to sit, and is there going to be the administrative infrastructure also to support this program above and beyond merely contracting with a provider to facilitate it, because there are still, you know, the county person power of developing the contracts and RFPs, developing the performance measurements, managing the invoicing process. So just wanted to make sure we're all, it's a little bigger than just saying we want money to grow capacity of providers. There's a whole network infrastructure that we also need to be thoughtful about needing to develop, because we simply don't have it at this point in time. But with that said, from the juvenile justice standpoint, many of you may be familiar with RDA's work managing the JJCC, and we've expanded their contract to do some really targeted capacity building work Ours is less around the grant making and more around growing their capacity to be more competitive for county contracts, assisting them with looking at operations, assist them with developing performance metrics and things of that nature. But I think it does dovetail really nicely with a grant making strategy as well.
Thank you, Isa. I think that helps clarify what I was trying to bring up also with the model and this request for funding. I think helping us get it to the next phase of something that's a more solid proposal, which in turn, I think, you know, assessing how much is it really going to take for us to do this in a robust way, and maybe it would take even technical assistance to get us to that point of ironing out, like, how much will this really be and what would it look like. But to your point, Isa, it will be a major campaign to actually take on the content of the work itself.
Okay, so there's been a motion, and I don't remember if there was a second for this motion.
No, there has not.
Okay, let's see if there's any public comment first. Don't forget about that.
A question.
Robin?
How much are we talking about? Or is there no dollar figure yet? I'm trying to get a sense of the scope of this.
Since I made the motion, I'll say my thought on this, and we've had some between meeting discussions. There was one also with RDA, kind of between JJCC and our group, to kind of talk about what are we thinking about here. My mindset is that it's perhaps more productive to not have a specific dollar ask, or even really in mind, as much as getting commitment from the Board of Supervisors that they believe that this is something worthy of robust investment, and then it being looked into by perhaps staff of the supervisors, and or asking report from any relevant agencies to say, well, what are you, we'd like to know, what are the comparables or something like that. In that we could have some specific proposal here, but since I'm thinking it can shake out a lot of different ways in terms of putting this into something that's already existing, or having something else independent, that kind of like what we had for this, the task force initially, is saying a commitment that this will be done, and then working out from that what it would take to really do it. But if the commitment's already there from the supervisors, then they would work out what the cost would be. But that's my sense. I don't know what yours is, or others in the group.
Do you have further questions, Robin?
Yeah, so Jeff, can you, so I'm looking at the language on the request, which is request initial funding from the board for technical assistance with development of the community capacity fund. So I'm not even sure if the motion is for the technical assistance to figure out how this would be done, or is it actually for the funding? Because I think if you're asking for technical assistance to come up with a proposal, that's a much easier thing to ask the board for than an open-ended, we're asking for a capacity fund.
Right. And I think this is really important to clarify.
Yeah.
And what I'm asking, what I'm proposing, is just the technical assistance. And I think this is kind of what perhaps Isa is raising too. It's like, this is going to be huge if we're really going to be doing this. I completely agree, but I sort of feel like we've reached a point in our discussions where even to just get a solid proposal to the Board of Supervisors, it's going to take more than the time and ability that we have right now. So I think I'm asking for a relatively smaller lift of, can we get some help to get a proposal that you would then consider?
that's really helpful. And I might suggest that the language be clarified a little bit so that it's clear that that's the ask.
I'm totally receptive.
Wasn't clear to me, but then I hadn't studied it real closely either. So I don't know if anyone else had that same concern, but I guess I'm going to put Isa on the spot and ask her if she has suggested language to make it clear what the ask is. And she's gone through this before.
Well, I mean, you mean in my prior jurisdiction, it was a little different because the board, it was a board order initially as a set aside of our 109 funds. They set aside $1 million annually and then left it up to the probation department to develop how we were going to release those capacity building grants. And we brought in 2 technical assistance providers and a consultant, Cynthia Burnett, who helped us develop the grant making process. And then the two TA providers worked very closely on a pre-grantee and a post-grantee process on the front end, doing more what I envision RDA doing, and then on the back end after the grants were released, assisting the grant recipients in the development and implementation of their plans, whatever their plans might be. And it was a wide range of things, from assisting CBOs in developing board of directors to assisting CBOs in developing data management systems. So it was a broad acumen of things that those grant dollars actually supported CBOs in developing.
Yeah, I have a friendly amendment to the language to suggest.
Please.
So where it says technical assistance with development, I would add of a proposal for a 2-phase hybrid cohort, etc.
Yeah, that sounds clearer to me of what I was trying to come across. So yes, that I accept that friendly amendment. And I invite a second if anyone feels so moved.
I'll second.
Thank you.
We need public comment after the discussion.
I don't see any hands up. All right, we can call for the roll call vote.
Melissa?
Aye.
Etha?
Aye.
Robin?
Yes.
Dinah?
Yes.
Pizza?
Yes.
Lynn? Did Lynn hear you?
Aye.
Okay. Dr. Walker?
Aye.
Misha?
Aye.
Jeff?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Shayla?
Aye.
Stephanie?
Yes.
Cheryl?
Yes, ma'am.
Noe?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you. Jeff, is that it from your?
That's everything I had.
Thank you so much. We'll move on to the data subcommittee. Becky.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Our report from the data subcommittee begins on page 10, attachment 3. And maybe I'll take a page from Jeff's book and share my screen. Is that readable? Yes, great. So in the last quarter, we've had 3 meetings in February, March, and April. And I just recapped most of what we reviewed during each of those meetings. And we definitely feel like we're making a lot of progress especially in regards to the juvenile data. Probation has been extremely cooperative and helpful in providing the subcommittee with just about anything that we have asked for. And we really appreciate their cooperation. And that was something that we listed as a recommendation, is that we would like to communicate our commendation to probation for their engagement in the subcommittee and their willingness to share their data and to promote transparency. We did have some questions. One of them was, we are drawing to a point where we feel we have some data that we are ready to post, but we were not quite certain exactly where the posting was supposed to be taking place. So we were bringing that question to this meeting for clarification. And then we do have some next steps. Before I go through the next steps, I thought I would go through the attachments that we provided and then return to that, if that's okay. On the next page, this is a attachment that we included that includes not our entire work plan, but the parts of the work plan that are active at this point. There were several activities that were clearly marked as something after we have more staff, and either after ORJ is fully staffed and or the Office of Equity is active. So I only included updates about the items that were above that line. But as I said, I thought that we really do have some great things to report here. And for the first objective of supporting the collection and reporting of accurate data in all criminal justice and law enforcement agencies countywide, we have been able to obtain some data both from probation and also directly from some publicly available sources. And that's further in the attachments. I'll show that in a second. And then, you know, we have two sets of data that we need, that we have not been able to obtain. And that is part of what our next steps are that I listed up above in terms of what we are going to be moving towards obtaining. And one of them is to obtain a similar set of data from the sheriff's office about adult bookings that would match in form and function the type of data that we have been receiving regularly from probation about juvenile intakes. And so that's the first thing. And then the second thing is both the call for service and officer initiated stop data from all the police departments and the sheriff's office. We had some representatives, Ms. Cheryl and Chris, did go to the police chief's meeting and request that data. And so we can talk more about where we're at with that. But that is definitely data that we need in order to move forward with the work plan. So we're hoping that we can have some motion on that. And then for objective 3, which is that ORJ shall support analysis of interventions implemented through the Racial Justice Task Force to measure efficacy and access impact on racial disparities. All activities under this objective to be reported to the RJOB and any other bodies, collectives identified by the Board of Supervisors. And then conducting an annual review of criminal justice and law enforcement outcomes to assess the presence of racial disparities. So we were able to, Denise from ORJ was able to produce a disparity matrix around different decision points in the justice flow. And we did look at that, but we don't have the same information for adults. So we were not able to conduct the same sort of analysis of that. But once we do, and now that ORJ has more staffing, I think that we imagine that we will be able to conduct a similar sort of analysis. So the next part of the attachment is just an example of the data that probation has been providing to us on a monthly basis. And that is to, it basically provides a racial and ethnic breakdown, also looks at the gender of the intakes, the age of the youth, also the zip code location, and the arresting agency. And then also shows the number of offenses that the intakes have. And then the results of the matter for the previous month's intakes. And then the number of days between disposition and when they actually entered the program for both the ranch and for YOTP. And then just, I think, just 2 months ago, we began getting a very high level of detail of information from probation about every intake. And this does require a little bit of explanation. So right here, when it says PID, this number, all of the ones that say 1 refer to the same individual. So all of these different rows, the first 8 rows that are here, all are for the same individual. So for some individuals, there's just a single row, as in number 2 and number 3, but in some like 1 and 4, there are multiple rows. And so this is, as I said, a very high level of detail about the intakes that happened, more detail than what's provided in the aggregate above. So that's for every intake that happened during the month. And each month they've been providing us with that information. The next attachment is an analysis of, a composite analysis of the number of adult misdemeanor arrests and felony arrests, which was publicly available from DOJ. And Denise was able to create this graphic, which just provides an overview to show the disparity. One thing we talked about is making a shadow bar on each of these to show the percentage of each group in the population to make the disparity very visually apparent. But this is the data that we were considering recommending to be posted. And you can see we have it for adults and we also have it for youth. And even without those shadow bars, it's quite obvious that the number of Black youth who are arrested greatly outnumbers their proportionality in the population. So going back up to the top and to the report out, the next steps that we have is to request the adult jail intake data from the Sheriff's Department in the same nature of what probation is providing for the youth intakes in juvenile hall. And so that would be in form and function what I just went through, the first part. And then the second part is to request the call for service and officer initiated stop data from both the Sheriff's Department and also from all the local police departments for their own municipalities. And in order to move forward on that, because we have made an initial ask through the police chiefs meeting, we had a discussion around the fact that the police chiefs are, employed and directed by the mayors and city managers. And so a next good step in order to obtain that data would be to request time on the agendas of both the mayor's conference and the city managers meeting to ask them to direct the police chiefs to provide the data that we are requesting. And we also spent some time looking at some expulsion data about the county. And another step we're going to do is look at more publicly available data at the very beginning of the cycle and dig more into exclusionary school discipline. So with that, I will open it up for any other committee members who may be, subcommittee members, I should say. Chris or Denise or anybody else who's present want to add anything to what I just shared?
I'll just add that, so just like what you just saw presented, that stuff on some level, we have information like that on a monthly basis in the data subcommittee. So if folks are curious, if it could inform your work, if it would, help you to make some decision in another subcommittee, or, from the body's perspective at large, please check out the agendas. And also if it's helpful to review this to some degree on a regular basis, in addition to that, let us know.
I would also add, as we move towards thinking about data dashboards and what those look like, the CSAC Summit Hub had a focused meeting this past week that was directed specifically at data dashboards They provided some fantastic suggestions on how to do this in a meaningful way to avoid confusion about what data means and all the, to basically set us up for success in posting some of these things. So I would expect that one of our next steps too will be to, sort of address some of those suggestions that they have so that we can ensure that we're not creating a can of worms that are really difficult to untangle. But great job, Becky. There's a lot of data there.
Well, thank you. You handled majority of it.
Thank you all for all the work that you put into this. I think one of the things that's coming up for me, and we've mentioned it, it's been a while, I think, in the Community Engagement Committee, but you made me think of it when you brought up the city councils, mayors, things like that. We had talked about getting more involved and presenting on what's going on with our job. And sorry if you all hear jackhammering, but we had talked about engagement as far as visiting those venues to let them know like what's going on with the committee, because I think there's still a lot of unknown with a lot of the city councils in the different areas. And so it may be good to think about how we can coordinate.
That would make a lot of sense to kind of present like what we have so far and what we're all about and where we're aiming. Would probably contextualize the request.
All right. Is there any more discussion from the group? If not,
I have a
go ahead,
question.
Robin.
Yeah, sorry, I'm having trouble trying to raise my virtual hand, but I'm wondering if someone can just give us a brief report back on how it went at the Chiefs meeting and what your reception was, and if you got any promises for data or questions that they wanted answered, or just how did that go?
That was Ms. Cheryl and Mr. Chris who were there. So I would defer to them about that.
I was gonna ask if Cheryl wanted to start, but one of my pet peeves is people unmuting to ask things like that when they can just start saying words. So I think at the time that we made the ask, it seemed to go over pretty well. There were questions of exactly how to go about getting the information that we were asking for, if some of it would be available, particularly when we started to talk about location data. It was like, well, look, some of this, we divide these into sectors that matter to law enforcement, but wouldn't mean anything to you. And that's about the best that we can do. So I don't know if we can really get you location data. And so there were also questions about resources that agencies felt like they may need in order to actually, sort of, I would say, execute this lift that we're asking for. And eventually that all came down to the sheriff's office saying that essentially individual agencies could opt in to have the sheriff's office share that data with us, and Denise can, probably help me to be a lot more precise in exactly what that was. But I think what we've talked about recently is that if we could reframe even that particular language, that particular notion, so that it's not something that individual agencies need to opt into, but it's something they can opt out of. If they object to that information being shared, then we might be further along toward actually having that information made available to us. So I think in the moment, it seemed like folks were receptive, but that there were some steps that needed to be taken in the meantime, and that we would check back in And in the meantime, sort of, I'm going to say a more sobering sort of look at, wait a minute, well, actually, we probably should go back and ask that we make that sort of change in such a way that we end up with the information that we want, potentially by default, as opposed to people needing to remember to send an extra email or communication to say we are willing to participate in that. And I will invite Cheryl if she wanted to add anything, because Cheryl was also there, did a really good job of helping to get the message across. And then Denise, if you wanted to clarify any of the very murky things that I just said.
No, I think you did a great job of explaining that. And it was a little tricky because my sense of going into the police chief's meeting was that we had essentially approval from the sheriff's office to provide this data, but that the sheriff's office wanted to get the quote unquote blessing and approval from law enforcement agencies before they did that. And just to ensure that everybody was on the same page. And then it turned into a situation where it was more about opting in and emails, and that just became a little trickier from the standpoint of what are we actually opting in for. So I think, as you pointed out, Chris, it would be really nice to be able to flip that on its head if we could, and return to what I think was our original understanding of the support, and then having those agencies who had concerns reach out surrounding those concerns, and then we could address them rather than with the assumption that everybody's on the same page, rather than going back and trying to get everybody's approval. So, it's a little tricky there, but I think that you did a great job of explaining it, and I'm not sure, Cheryl, do you have any other thoughts surrounding how that went?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that there was a split commitment, right? To providing the data and the information. There was a little bit of hesitancy on some of their parts, but the hesitancy was more around who was going to supply the resources to getting it done. And then once there was a couple of the chiefs who say, but we have to provide this eventually anyway, and who said we need to work together to get this done. Then the ones who were hesitant actually fell back. So I think that instead of this body being more like, okay, let's just wait, it was when they realized that this was the information that we were looking for, and we were able to say, and it was us who said, well, Chief French over here in little bitty Richmond is producing information similar to what we were asking for. And these bigger departments kind of were like, oh, okay. And then there was a realization that this is information that can be provided. I think it kind of changed the tenor of we don't want to do it. So I was surprised afterwards that there was some kind of pushback. I think it's from the sheriff's office, even though John Loudon was willing to help us before. So I think it's more along the lines of what are we going to ask for? It's from us, right? Are we going to ask? Or are we going to sit back and wait? And I've said this in the data subcommittee meeting. I've said this in our diversion committee meeting. I've said it in this meeting. This task force was developed for us to close these gaps. It's not going to close by itself. Just like a tree doesn't get chopped down by itself. If we don't ask, it's not going to happen. And so I think the commitment that was shown from the county level, from, you know, City of Richmond, and many of our partners, even in probation, being willing to give us data, has helped us get to much of the information that we have gotten, and it wasn't going to happen if we didn't ask. So that's where we stand. And that meeting was the beginning of the ask. So I think we need a follow-up to that ask. We need a follow-up, and it needs to come from this entire committee saying, thank you for having us. We're following up, and this is the specific information that we need.
So I think I could probably
Christopher,
myself.
great. He did a great job.
I'm sorry, Cheryl.
I'm sorry. It's okay.
So I think this is somewhere where I can actually help
I
with
said
that.
he did a great job.
I'm sorry, Cheryl, I keep cutting you off.
You're fine.
Okay, thank you. I think I can probably help with the prod, maybe myself and the DA, and maybe even Issa, since we all participate in the county chiefs meeting, and we're getting ready to have a retreat in a couple of weeks where I can ask that the chair put it on the agenda for us to follow up with the ask. And since I am the liaison for RJOB to the county chiefs, I can ask to be put on the agenda to ask where we are with it. And the conversation after the presentation was that it would just be easy if we had all the data come from the sheriff's department, you know, through the ARIES reports, because all the information is put into the system, that they can probably easily get the report, get the information and send it to this body pretty easily, so that all the information is also streamlined. So if that is okay, then I will move forward with that, and that will be later this month.
That would be wonderfully supportive of our subcommittee's request. Thank you.
All right. I don't want to keep forgetting public comment, but I don't see any public comment. This wasn't an actual action item that we needed to vote on, right? Okay, just making sure. Is there anything else from the data subcommittee?
Can I just ask a clarifying question about the data? I was also having a trouble raising my digital hand now. I was doing fine before, but I can't find it now. I just wanted to ask the statewide data that is included in the report, is that from all county agencies or just sheriff?
So Jeff, what data are you speaking to in particular?
Yeah, when we're looking, I think it's page 18 of 20, and then that's the DOJ info.
Yes, so that's the state data that each county reports up to the State Department of Justice. And so it's public domain. And you can sort the data by race and gender and year, age of the individuals, as well as sort by county. So this is all Contra Costa County for the period of the last 5 years that were available. They typically do not release the previous year of data to public domain for at least 6 months, because many counties have changes and adjustments, corrections that are taking place during that time period. But I would expect that sometime in the next 3 to 6 months that the 2020 data will be available, and we can update these graphics to include that next year from 2020.
Thanks.
And so we have misdemeanors and felony arrests. I do not recall that it goes into more detail than that, but it may very well by class. I was just drawing on this as an example for presentation of what we might want to consider posting as a static dashboard on one of our websites. And that does kind of take me back to the one outstanding question that the committee had surrounding any thoughts or ideas with regard to where we might think about making this data available to the public, and what kind of process that we want to think about for posting that.
Yeah, I would just say that from our subcommittee, just two things. One is that we were seeking clarification about the directive to post data, where that should be located. And the second was that we were asking that the larger body publicly commend probation for their data sharing.
I would make a motion to publicly commend probation for leadership and data sharing.
Second.
Is there any further discussion?
I have a question. Keep asking questions. Where is this public commendation going to occur? How is this, what does this mean? Is it just here? We're going to do it at a board meeting, which I think would be a really great idea. I guess I would ask for a little bit more specifics about what it means to have a public commendation, because I do think that it's really important to uplift probation for their transparency and their assistance and their support in providing the data that they have. And they're a great role model for the other departments that are not quite understanding how they could do this. So I guess I would ask, or maybe recommend, that this be by way of a asking it to put this on a board agenda, to have this body make a presentation of some sort to commend probation for their data sharing. So maybe that's a friendly amendment to the motion.
I'm in favor of that also, right? That the purpose is to really shine a light on how this is important and leading by example. So the more that we can have it as a visible thing that we're appreciative, I think is a good idea.
I would just add that we did actually look at the juvenile justice process flow about every step along the way in that process, and kind of went through and determined that for the juveniles, at every step along the way, we now have the information we need in total, and that all from probation. So I think it is a pretty huge thing. They really have, like I said, given us everything that we've asked for or wanted. And I know that earlier it was mentioned that there was some hesitancy about giving geographic data, but I think that a suggestion to the other municipalities would be to follow what probation has done with the juveniles, which is to report it by zip code, because that's something that everybody understands. But I just want to say that I appreciate what you're saying, Robin, about lifting it up, because it takes some energy on their part to give that to us every month. And so thank you.
Yeah, I have my hand up.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah. One idea might be to do a brief board presentation at a board meeting. One of the non-agendized presentation that comes at the front of the meeting, with just a brief message, from the chair or co-chairs of the data subcommittee, talking about the commendation that we're making, and also the hope that we're getting the same kind of data from the adult population. Then it might be a good way to tee up the issue in case we decide to go on to the mayor's conference or city managers for help. And you could do the commendation for the probation department in that context.
Okay, I see a lot of head nods. Is there, I think, do we want to restate what the motion is?
I think, right, what Dr. Walker was saying, I think is consistent with Robin's friendly amendment, that this would be something that we would be making the commendation before the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, and was there already a second to that?
Second.
Okay. Public comment? Don't see any. Roll call vote.
Melissa,
Aye.
Lisa,
I will abstain because it's related to probation and I really do, I appreciate it. I'm very flattered. I think the data integrity and data transparency is just what the community deserves, but I will abstain. Thank you.
Robin,
Yes.
Dinah,
Yes.
Lisa,
Yes.
Lynn,
Yes.
Dr. Walker,
Yes.
Tamisha,
Yes.
Beth,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Shayla,
Yes.
Stephanie,
Yes.
Cheryl,
Yes.
Noe,
Yes.
motion carries.
Perfect. I think that completed the data subcommittee's report. All right, time to move on to the diversion committee, and I'm not as lofty as everyone else with a long report, so I'll give out the report without bringing up my screen. The diversion subcommittee met twice since our last meeting, and I apologize, I only put once on our form. But we had two meetings. The first meeting was to get the new members more acquainted with our work plan and things that we had been working on up. So the new members were up to date. And then we also worked to identify people that we could bring into our meetings to give us an overview of the diversion programs that are going on in the county. And we have a list of all the diversion programs and we've gone through that list, but we thought it would be helpful to hear from the actual diversion providers of what the programs consist of. And so our last meeting, RISE presented on their diversion program that they have in conjunction with the DA's office. And in our future meeting, we're going to have additional presentations from several more diversions service providers. In addition, we agreed to take the diversion definition that was voted on by all of us to the JJCC, and Chris was going to follow up and work on that. And that's a short summary, but that's what we've done. Chris, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I will just add that for the programs that are upcoming, the rule always was, right, that we're supposed to submit any attachments that we're going to use if we're going to share the screen. So we ended up not having as many presentations as were scheduled last time, just because we had sort of gotten a little relaxed with that. So just a reminder to everyone, if you're planning on presenting at that meeting, if you're here, please get your information in. You have another week, I think, to get all of that into us. And we already got it from probation, from Kira. So just the other groups listed there or organizations listed there, we still need those documents from you guys.
And we're not asking for any action to be taken at this time. Questions? Public comment? Not hearing any. Not seeing any hands, but also I'm unable to go up and down the participants list. So if there's any hands that I'm missing, please let me know.
I don't see any.
All right. That brings us to the end of our agenda. Our next meeting is our next quarterly meeting is scheduled for August 5th from 1 to 4. I think that's it.
Thank
You can
you.
adjourn.
Expertly facilitated. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
For facilitating, Chief.
Tamisha, you'll be up next.
I'm aware. Checking my email.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you.
See you in August.